once again, welcome to you all. You know very well. So Dr. Sedaraman's right is available. So most of the people know about Dr. Sedaraman sir. He is going to give the great lectures today. As you already aware, Dan Foundation is already completed 80 such World Heritage and Lecture Series. Today is the 81st lecture. This is the first time we are doing it virtually. I think this today's experience going to be rich for you. And Dr. Sedaraman sir prepared very well about this lecture. So most of the people know you very well about Dr. Sedaraman sir. Anybody is new in this program, I just wish to introduce him. Dr. Sedaraman sir is the art historian in Madurai, Kamarajar University. He is a very eminent professor and he has written a lot of more than 50 books and he has developed more than 50 PhD students in his career. Still, he is doing a lot of lectures in many places and very important scholars. So now he is going to give the lecture on sacred geography of Tanjavur. Now I am going to give the mic to Dr. Sedaraman sir. He will deliver his lecture in a detailed manner.
Friends, good evening. Okay. In the Sacred Geographic series, today we are going to talk about Tanjavur as a sacred center. In India, every place has its own sacred stories, sacred myths. Sometimes pan-Indian myths were localized, and sometimes the local people themselves have created some sacred stories about their own village or city or town. And Tanjavur is not an exception. It also has some mythological stories. Well known as Tanjai or Tanjavuri in epigraphical records, Tanjavur was also called as Alagapuri or Alagai, the city of the god Indra, Vijayapuri, the city of victory, and Kuberapuri, the city of god Kubera, the god of wealth. It indicates the richness of the land and the wealth it produces. That is why this place is called the granary of Tamil Nadu. Located some 342 kilometers south of Chennai, it became a great center of importance of culture during the Chola occupation. The Cholas had this as their capital between 9th and 13th centuries CE. The name Tanjavur was derived from a demon by name Tanjan. He was wandering in that place and giving some troubles to the people. The people approached Lord Vishnu for their rescue. Lord Vishnu descended from his abode and slayed the demon Tanjan. At his death, Tanjan requested the Lord to name this place after him. Hence, it has become Tanjavur. Tanjavur was the capital of the Cholas from the days of Vijayalaya Chola, that is around 850 BCE. Before that, it was not at all associated with the Cholas or other dynasties. Even the early Chola period, that is the Sangam period, which flourished between 3rd century BCE and 3rd century CE. It was not the capital. There were some other capitals like Urayur, Palayare, and Kavaripumbattinam. So, only from the 8th century onwards, we are able to get some concrete historical evidence about Tanjavur. Interestingly, not as the capital of the Cholas during the 8th century, it was the city ruled by the powerful chieftains called Muttarayas. Thirumangayalvar, one of the 12 Alvars, Vaishnava Alvars, who was the contemporary of Nandivarma Pallavamalla in the 8th century, he praises a Vishnu temple called Manikoil, which was located at Tanjavur. He calls this temple as Mamanikoil. Vedumba Solai Mamani Koil Vanangi. He says that. So, it was during that time, the Muttarayas, they changed their allegiance often, either towards the Pallavas or towards the Pandyas. This attitude, this flickering attitude, weakened their power. It was utilized, this opportunity was utilized by another feudatory of the Pallavas, that was Vijayalaya. So Vijayalaya conquered the Muttarayas and captured the city of Tanjavur. He established an empire called Vijayalaya Chola Empire, and later on it came to be called as Imperial Chola Empire. So from then onwards, Tanjavur became the capital of the Imperial Cholas. So from the 9th century, that is after 850 CE, we are able to get a good number of historical records speaking about Tanjavur and its glory. And this Vijayalaya Chola, according to one of the copper plates of Rajendra the first, Tiruvalangadu copper plates of Rajendra the first, Vijayalaya Chola not only established the Vijayalaya Chola line and also consecrated the image of Nisumba Sundari, the very victorious goddess. She was also very ferocious. According to Tiruvalangadu plates, this goddess, the lotus feet of this goddess was worshipped by the gods as well as the demons. With the blessings of this goddess, Vijayalaya wore the earth as his garland. So, another inscriptional record, Kanyamari inscription of Veerarajendra also speaks about the establishment of the city and the Chola Empire by Vijayalaya Chola. So, from all these records, it is evident that only from the time of the Vijayalaya Chola, Tanjavur became the capital, and not only capital, it became one of the foremost political, social and cultural centers of the Tamil country. So, this Nisumba Sundari, there is an opinion about Nisumba Sundari image. Dr. Nagasamy is of the opinion that there is an image of Nisumba Sundari now under worship. Now you can see the figure. Now under this goddess is now under worship in Tanjavur, and she is 8-armed goddess, seated image. The height of the goddess is 184 centimeter. This goddess is wielding a trident in one of his right hands and just pointing the demon brothers. And one of the demon brothers, Nisumba, his head is trampled under the right leg of the goddess. And her head is somewhat going back to show the ferociousness while wielding the trident. And this was the image consecrated by Vijayalaya according to Dr. R. Nagasamy. But Sri S.R. Balasubramaniam feels that it is not the original image. There is another Kali temple located outside Tanjavur. The name of the Kali is Ukramagali. So he feels that this may be the original image consecrated by Vijayalaya Chola. But what we feel is, whether both of them are correct or not, even now, the original image consecrated by Vijayalaya is not at all traceable. However, these two images now we have shown in our PowerPoint are actually early images, maybe somewhat earlier than Vijayalaya Chola period. But we do not know whether one of these images may be the original image or some other image which have been destroyed in course of time. Okay. This Vijayalaya was followed by his son Aditya the first, grandson Paranaga the first, and great grandsons Gandaraditya, Arinjaya, Sundara Chola, Uttama Chola, Rajaraja, and others. It is only during Rajaraja's period, that is between 985 CE and 1014 CE, Tanjavur gained its immense grandeur, studded with palaces and the great temple, the Rajarajeshwaram. That means Shiva, the Lord of Rajaraja the first. This temple is also called as Big Temple and Bragadishwara Temple. It is an ambitious project. The emperor used the best of everything in the temple building tradition. That is architecture, whether it is architecture or sculpture or painting or music or dance or even education, whatever it may be. In every aspect of the temple construction, he wanted to have the best of it. K.R. Srinivasan says that he wanted to use the best of everything in the temple building tradition. So he wanted to give maximum effect. He watched meticulously the every point of time. He wanted to have the knowledge, wide knowledge about the construction of the temple. Why? This temple was constructed between 995 and 1010 CE by the great ruler, that is celebrated Chola ruler Rajaraja the first, as a symbol of his imperial policy. It was the time, it was a landmark, not only in political area, but also in the cultural as well as economic area. So there was wealth flowing to the treasury of the Cholas during the period of Rajaraja. So he wanted to show his might. That is why he wanted to have best of everything in his construction. That is most important one. So it was the masterpiece of Chola architecture. No temple before his time was such a massive structure was engaged or constructed by any ruler with heavy amount of expenditure and the staggering cost and labor. There were thousands of laborers working in the construction of this particular temple. Before going into the temple construction, I want to say a few words about the previous. There was a previous structure before starting of this temple by Rajaraja. So this is miniature sculptural panel found in a insignificant place on the side wall of the balustrade. That means the steps leading to the temple. Okay, this you can just see this panel. The first, from first you can see this. There is a Buddha image, seated image under Bodhi tree, and there are some devotees, both Hindu and Buddhist devotees. They were just discussing something about the replacement of the Buddha temple. So before the erection of this temple, Raja Rajeswaram by Rajaraja, there must have been a Buddhist monastery or a Buddhist temple in that place. So both the Hindus and the Buddhists, they were discussing, and they have come to a consensus. It was not forcibly replaced. So discussions were going on, and after that they have decided to replace the Buddha shrine to some other place. You can see at last, you can see that the Buddhist temple is taken away and a Hindu temple is coming to the front. And the last, this one. So that is the Hindu temple, and by the side of that there is a Buddhist temple. So they are carrying on their shoulders. So what it shows that there was a Buddhist monastery here, and Rajaraja was probably advised by his own astrologers to construct a temple in the same site. So he approached the Buddhists, and there was a consensus, and the temple was replaced to some other area because the Cholas patronized Buddhism also. So their contribution at Nagapattinam is well known. So Rajaraja himself patronized Buddhism, and he also appreciated when a prince, a feudatory prince, donated some villages to a Buddhist monastery. So this is, he wanted to show this history to the people. However, it is placed in a insignificant area of the temple. And why Rajaraja's temple was a magnificent one? And I told you that it's an ambitious project because the previous temples, even in the Chola country, his own predecessors constructed very simple temples, very simple, with at the most 3-storied buildings. Those temples were either constructed with stone or constructed using bricks, or both stone and bricks. And at the most, on the walls of the temple, on the northern, western and southern walls of the temple, there were only one niche, that is Devagosta, to place the images of the gods. And in some places, more than 3 or 4 Devagostas were also provided to place the images. But the height of those temples were not more than 10 meters. The Vimanas, the height of the Vimanas of the earlier period were not more than 10 meters. And the temples constructed by Rajaraja himself in other places, they were also only 3-storied structures. They were not so massive, even though those things were constructed by using all stone. You can see there are some of the temples constructed by Rajaraja in other places like Dadapuram and Rameshwaram. There are 3 all stone, very magnificent temples constructed by Rajaraja at Rameshwaram. These temples are now located in a insignificant place. They are all now seen in the garden. If you go there, you can see only whitewashed structures, not the original structures now. So you can see these are, when compared with the Rajarajeshwaram, these massive structures are very simple and tiny. So his intention was very ambitious, and so he very meticulously observed what to do to make this magnificent temple. That is why this temple is compared to Dakshina Meru. This is called Dakshina Meru. That means it is equal to Meru mountain. Where is that Meru mountain? It is nowhere. It is a mythical mountain. It is believed to have existed somewhere beyond Himalayas, but there is no such mountain at all. Anyhow, this is named after Meru mountain. It is called Dakshina Meru. Such a huge structure. Okay. Now we enter into Rajaraja's temple. When we enter into Rajaraja's temple, we are welcomed by Gopuram. We are welcomed by this one. Two Gopuras. We have to enter only through these two Gopuras. That is the outer Gopura, that is 5-storied, and this is the inner Gopura, 3-storied. So, construction of Gopura structure is not new to the Tamils. Even during the Pallava period, the Gopuras were erected, but they are all only just gateways. And what is significant here, these are all massive structure. These Gopuras, these two Gopuras are massive structure, which paved the way for the later rulers to think about giving much importance to erection of tall Gopuras in front of the temples. So after Rajaraja, his own successors, and the later Pandyas, the Vijayanagar Nayak rulers, they all erected tall Gopuras in front of the temple. So it was a dominant structure also. The 5-storied Gopura is called as Rajarajan Gopura in his own name. And the 3-storied Gopura is called as Keralandagan Gopura. That is, he defeated the Chera rulers. And in memory of that, it is named after Rajaraja's victory over the Cheras. There is an inscription also which speaks about the Rajaraja's victory over the Cheras. The first line you can see, Kandalur Chalai Kalamaruthu Aruli. Kandalur Chalai Kalamaruthu Aruli. So these are the informations that we derive from the inscriptions also. Next. So these are some of the sculptures found on the Gopuras. And these sculptures were originally, the Gopuras themselves were all stone structures, and these sculptures were also stone sculptures, later on stucco rendered. So there are so many Saiva episodes are depicted in the Gopuras. And one such important sculptural representation is Mahashva, that is Maheshwara. Next. Maheshwara. So this Maheshwara is the concept. It is found in Shiva's Sadadrudriya. That is, even during the Upanishad period, in some of the Samharas, it is found. And Sivaramamurthy has also written a book on Sadasiva, Shiva's Vibhuti. Sadadrudriya is Shiva's Vibhuti. And this Maheshwara means the great Lord. Shiva is the great Lord, and he is the superior of all gods according to the Saiva concept or Saiva philosophy. The earliest sculpture representation was made at Elephanta in the 6th century CE. And this is the second image that we found. This image is very rarely depicted in the temples of Tamil Nadu. This is another important sculptural representation. It's very rarely found before the time of Rajaraja. This is Krishna stealing the garments of the gopis, that is the girls of the Yadava girls who were taking bath in the river Yamuna. So he was stealing the cloths, and he went to the tree top. So this particular, though it finds a place in the sculptural art very rarely prior to Rajaraja. This is for the first time Rajaraja depicted this sculptural representation on the Gobra, and later on it became a set pattern during the later Pandyas as well as the Vijayanagar Nayak rulers. In almost all their Gobras, this sculpture finds a place. This is the temple proper. It is a rectangular site in which the temple is located. The surrounding walls measure about 152.40 into 76.20 meters, the total area. And inside the compound walls, there are the main temple, as well as there are the Parivara Alayas. The Ganapati temple is there, the Subramania temple is there, the goddess temple is there, Nataraja shrine is there, Chandigeshwara shrine, and there are temples for 8 Dikpalagas. 8 Dikpalagas in this temple complex. Now we go to the main temple. This is the main temple, and in front of it there is a Nandi pavilion. The pavilion was a later addition during the Nayak period, and the original Nandi is there. Its length is 6 meters, its height is 3.7 meters, and the width is 2.5 meters. And this is, as I already told you, this is a massive structure. When we look at Nandi itself, you can understand how the whole structure would be. So this particular temple, Rajarajeshwaram, unlike the previous temples, which I already told you that they are all 3-story, single-storied, here this is a 13-storied structure with a height of 60 meters. The basement itself is 15-meter height. It has 15-meter height. And on top of the top story, there is a slab placed. It is a square slab. This is called Griva platform. Its weight is 80 tons. Previously, there was an opinion that this coping stone or slab, it is a single stone. But later on, researchers have found out that it is not made of single stone, rather it is a combination of a number of slabs. And the Sigara itself is 6 meters height. It is an octagonal Sigara. And on the top of the Sigara, there is a Kalasa which height is 12.5 feet. And there is an opinion that the whole temple was gold plated by Rajaraja. It is a wrong news, it's wrong information. often we find not in the records, but in WhatsApp postings. So the Sigara was gold plated, and the recent inscriptions, recently found inscriptions also says that this Kalasa, the finial, was also gold plated earlier. And the wall, this is the interior of the temple. It is a hollow from the first story to the coping stone, the square coping stone, up to that area. It is a hollow interior. It's a very very good engineering work. It is very difficult to do it even now. So such a work was done by the great emperor. And one thing I want to tell you that the funding, how the temple construction was funded, it was funded by enormous booty, because he had won so many countries. Gangabadi, Nulambabadi, Srivijaya, the Pandyas, the Cheras, the Sri Lanka, Ceylon, and so many countries have been conquered by Raja Raja with the support of his great son, Rajendra the First. So the enormous amount of booty, and it was also funded by the emperor himself, his own queens, his own sister, and others. That what are the things that they have presented? That I will tell you when we talk about the inscriptions. Okay, now next one. This is the wall. This is the wall of the temple, the main wall. It is divided into two portions. Some scholars feel that it is 2 stories. It is not 2-storied build structure. The wall is only single-storied. Since it is a very tall one, they have divided, to strengthen the wall portion, they have divided a single wall into 2 portions. And here we have to find out some innovations. What are the innovations are seen? Innovations of Rajaraja. Previously, those architectural features have not been found in other. Previously, the pillar capitals were either wavy line. Pillar capitals are called corbels. So they were either wavy, Taranga Bodhige. They were called as Taranga corbels. Sometimes angular corbels, very simple one. Here, he has introduced T-shaped corbel, Kenan-like. So it is his own innovation. And another thing is the Kumbha Panjaras. That is the Kenan-like corbel. And here you can see the Kumbha Panjaras intercepted by sculptures and other things. You can see the Kumbha Panjaras. It is his own innovation. Later on, followed by the later Pandyas and the Vijayanagar rulers. In almost all later Pandya temples, you can see this Kumbha Panjara, because it is a royal symbol. It's a pot-like shape from which the pillar shaft emerges, and at the top of it there is a miniature temple structure, and the pot is also garlanded. And the same Kumbha Panjara was later on followed by the later Pandyas and Vijayanagar Nayak rulers in a stylized form. So it looks so beautiful, and they are all very stylized ones. And another important thing is, I told you that every wall of the earlier temples had only 1 or 2 or 3 niches, devakostas. Here you can see that there are 2 levels of niches, the upper level and the lower level. Each level, and in each wall, they have 10 niches, totaling 30 niches in the upper level and 30 niches in the lower level. That is on the south wall, west wall, and the northern wall. So totaling 30 niches in the lower level and the same number of niches in the upper level. So here 30 sculptures in each niche there is a sculpture of a goddess, and we have to say about the Dwarapalagas. There are, you can see there are 2 Dwarapalagas, and in this Rajarajeshwaram temple there are 18 sculptures of the Dwarapalagas. They are 2.5 a size of a human being, say about more than 12 feet height. They are very sturdy. There is no movement in their physique. They are all four-armed figures, and they are very static, and they are well ornamented. That's another important thing. And in these niches, there are sculptures of the gods starting from the south wall. South wall, Ganapati. They started from Ganapati, and from Ganapati to Lingodbhavam, Nadaraja, Kalasamhara Murti, Gangadharam, Ardhanarishwaram, Vrishavaganam, Dakshinamurti, Mahisasura Mardini, Bhairava, Durga, and so on. Many 30 images are there. But in contrast to the lower level, he has made some other thing that is in the upper level. What is that? In all the 30 niches, he has made the images of only one god, that is Tripurandaka. Tripurandaka is a form of Shiva. Tripurandaka is a form of Shiva. We are going to show the separate sculptures also. Just it is there. So Tripurandaka is a form of Shiva, in which Shiva destroyed 2 mythical cities created by 3 demon brothers, and thereby he became the lord of 3 worlds. So Rajaraja, he himself conceived that he was equal to Tripurandaka, and he was blessed by the god Tripurandaka, because it is not very new to the Tamil rulers. Often they used to say that they were the kings of the 3 worlds, Tribhuvana Chakravartis. Not only the Tamils, even every ruling dynasty, they had their own Ishta Devadas. They loved some gods because of their valor, because of their might. They wanted to equate themselves with such gods. Say, for example, the early rulers, Guptas and the Chalukya rulers, they considered Bhuvaraha as their Ishta Devada. Why? Because Bhuvaraha rescued Mother Earth from the nether world. So, when Bhuvaraha rescued Mother Earth, Guptas also rescued the Mother Earth, because they ruled very peacefully the earth. The Chalukyas also ruled very peacefully, and the Pallavas also thought of Trivikrama. So each rulers, each dynasty had their own Ishta Devada, and here Rajaraja wanted to equate himself with the valor or the greatness of Tripurandaka Deva. That is the greatness of Rajaraja. Next. This is the basement. This is the basement, and the lower portion is the Upapida, and the basement is a square one, and its circumference is 100 100 meter, 100 square meter, 100 square meter, and there are inscriptions. The Sanskrit and Tamil inscriptions are very well written. You can see the lines, how meticulously it is written. What is written there? The emperor wanted to record every aspect of the temple construction. So there were the donations made by the emperor, the donations made by his own family members, and others were also recorded in it. The king, Rajaraja himself, donated some 41,500 kalanjus and 10,200 kasus of gold. In silver, he donated 51,650 kalanjus. His own elder sister, Kundavai, donated 10,000 kalanjus of gold and 18,000 kalanjus of other utensils and materials. They have not only donated these things, they also donated metals, gold, silver, copper, panchaloga, iron, lead, copper, everything they donated. And each image, metal image was also made. A number of metal images were made. The weight of the metal images, the combination of the metals in a particular image, whether it is a seated image or a standing image, whether it is a solid image or a hollow one, how many hands are provided, what are the attendant deities. So all these informations were written in these inscriptions. There were about 850 employers' names are listed. 400 dancing girls' names are listed. Some 67 musicians' names are listed. 174 priests' names are listed. And 143 watchmen names are also listed in these inscriptions. This is the main portion of the inscription. See, there are about 107 paragraphs. It's a very long inscription. Perhaps this is the longest inscription in the whole of India. No temple has such a long inscription at all. So here, this is the main portion of the inscription which speaks about the construction of the temple by the emperor. See, the last but one line, it speaks that Tanjavur நாம் எடுப்பித்த கற்றளி. Tanjavur நாம் எடுப்பித்த, last but one. Adana. Okay, the second line. And in the last line, there is a reference to the donations. நாம் கொடுத்தனவும், அக்கன் கொடுத்தனவும், கொடுத்தோர் கொடுத்தனவும். So donations made by me, my own sister, and others. So he has mentioned all these things in these inscriptions. When the Europeans came to India, they said that the Indians lack historical sense. It is a wrong opinion of the Europeans because the Indians also had historical sense. Rajaraja's inscriptions themselves are the best evidences for the historical sense of the Indians. See, this is very clear. Here you can see Udayar Rajaraja Soladevar. Very clearly his name is mentioned. It speaks about the land donations made for the maintenance of the pujas and festivals in the temple. His original name is Arunmoli Thevan. Arunmoli means essence of grace. Arunmoli means essence of grace. His original name is also found in the inscription. That is the last but one line, Arunmoli Devan. Okay. So these are the informations that we found in the inscriptions of the temple. This is the Nandi pavilion. I told that this massive Nandi, its length is 6 meters and the height is 3.7 meters and the breadth is 2.5 meters. Such a massive one, in accordance with the God, the image of the main God placed in the Garbhagriha. There is an image of God Shiva, that is Shivalinga, in the Garbhagriha. It's the cylindrical part, the top portion itself has 12 feet height. And the basement, that is to the Avadai, it has 18 feet height. The distance between the Shivalinga and the Nandi is 247 feet. 247 feet. So these are some of the ideas about the construction of the temple by Rajaraja. Now we are going to see some sculptures, what they speak about. See, what is significant here, there are life-size sculptures are there. You can see the pillar capital, T-shaped pillar capital here. It is very well carved, and every pillar is also very massive. And the niche is also very deep. You cannot move your eye from one place to another place. Such a massive work has been done by the emperor. And here what is in the sculptures? This is Chandrasekhara sculpture. Just I want to tell you what is mentioned. See, there is an innovation by Rajaraja that the legend associated with the iconography of the image placed in each niche is indicated by small cameos in some scripto manner on the either side of the jambs. You can see this. Some scripts are also there in each niche, speaking about the name of the image and other small informations about the images. That is most important achievement by the emperor. So there are many sculptural representations. This is a Gauri Prasada Murti, that is Shiva is embracing Parvati and just pleasing her. This is a kind of diplomacy to please a woman. Here God also pleases his own consort. What for? When he received the goddess Ganga on his locked hair, Parvati got angry. So immediately Shiva wanted to please her by embracing. That is why this is called Gauri Prasada Murti. So this is very beautiful sculpture, Kalara Murti. There are two sculptures of Kalara Murti. Of them, the one which is located this side is very beautiful. You can see the eyeballs. The eyeballs themselves give some sumptuous meaning about his activities. Even though he's very ferocious, his countenance and his lips show the smile. The gods never get angry. They will always show sympathy over their own enemies also. Here it is Kala Samhara. So slaying Yama, the god of death. You can see this. Is one of his legs, that is left leg is raised, and the toe of the left leg is just pressing the Kala, that is Yama. Yama, that is a god of death, the god of time and everything. So that is also another sculpture that also speaks much about Shiva. Next. So there are so many sculptures. This is Lingotbhava Murti. Even though Lingotbhava Murti was already introduced by the Pallavas in that temple. Here, in the Chola period, particularly during the medieval period, the position of Lingodbhava on the west wall was categorized. It was set a pattern from then onwards. Okay, next. So there are so many sculptures. Just I wanted to show a few sculptures only for you. And I told you about 30 Tripurandaka images. Each one is different from other. So in one image, he holds bow, arrow, and trident. In some other image, sword and shield and other things. For to show, for example, we have now given a few pieces of Tripurandaka sculptures. So this is one another thing. Just next. This is another Tripurandaka sculptures. This is Shiva as warrior, and here another warrior. See, Rajaraja had a huge army, so he respected his warriors. So in his temples constructed by him, in his own temples, the warrior sculptures were also placed. It is seen in Rameswaram, Dadapuram, and here also you can see the warriors. Shiva himself is shown as a warrior here. This is the first starting in the south wall of the temple. That is why we have shown this Ganapati image. So you all know about Ganapati. There is no need to explain about him. This is also his own brother Subramania's image. It is very beautifully carved. I think in the Tamil country, even though we have found so many images of Muruga Subramania prior to that, along with this peacock is found in a few places, and this is one among them. This is Durga, the goddess of victory. See, very beautiful sculptures, and she is standing on the buffalo head, that is Mahisa's head. After slaying Mahisa, to show her victory, she is standing on the head of Mahisa. Okay, next. This is Lakshmi image. The seated Lakshmi under a tree is very rarely found in Indian art. And in earlier art, we cannot see either Lakshmi is standing or along with, he is seated along with Vishnu as Sridevi. Here, he has seated separate Lakshmi is depicted in this temple. And again, Saraswati is also. Saraswati is very rare. Next. Saraswati is very rare here, Rajaraja, because not only he developed art activities, he also spent money for Vedic education. So that is the reason why Saraswati image is also depicted in this temple. So this is an European sculpture found, it is a stucco work found on the superstructure of the Vimana. It is not the original one. It was later on added, probably during the Nayak period. Because the Nayak rulers had trade contacts with the Europeans, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and others. So this image was during that period, it was included in the sculptural representations. So that's why I wanted to show this image. And the inner portion of the Garbhagriha wall is also divided into the lower and upper portions. And the lower portion has the paintings, the wall paintings, and the upper portion has the Karana poses, that is 108 dance poses were enumerated by Bharata's Natya Sastra, and those Karanas are given sculptural representation in this temple. So these are the
The best
images of
Raja.
four-armed images of Shiva with a Karana pose, and there are about 108 of them, excepting the last 27. Others have been completed ones, and it formed prelude for the later day depiction of these Karana sculptures in the Gopuras of Chidambaram temple. These are also other Karana sculptures. Okay. Then we come to the paintings, and on the west and north walls there are paintings, and on the west wall the paintings on the top portion, the painting of the daily life in the Shiva's abode, that is Kailaya. In the Kailaya, the daily life is going on. Shiva is seated. There is a figure there. Shiva is seated in Yoga Dakshinamurti posture, and Parvati is also seated by his side. Correct. So Parvati is also seated by his side, and the damsels are dancing, and musical instruments are played by Vishnu and other divine beings. And Nadaraja temple, Chidambaram Nadaraja temple is also shown in one of the portions, and there are two other images. One is Seraman Perumal Nayanar and another is Sundaramurti Nayanar. They are moving towards Kailaya, and they are welcomed by the damsels by dancing and the musical instruments, everything. They are welcomed. And the lower portion shows the marriage of Sundaramurti Nayanar, one of the 63 Nayanmars and one of the great 4 Saiva saints. And when he was about to marry a girl organized by his own parents, Shiva appeared in the form of a Brahmin and said that you are my slave. You cannot marry this girl. You have to get permission from me. So Sundaramurti asked him, who are you? I am not a slave to anybody. But Shiva showed a palm leaf record mentioning that Sundaramurti was a slave of Shiva. Then the marriage was stopped. And here you can see on the left side, you can see the cooking is going on by women for marriage feast. So everything is shown in one wall, that is the western wall. Now the original paintings, they are very in a dilapidated condition. Anyway, I will show that. This is the Nadaraja, Chidambaram Nadaraja temple, where the emperor and his queens are worshipping. These are the paintings of Rajaraja and his Guru Karuvurdeva. Whether this identification is correct or not, we are not certain, but some scholars have identified it as the figures of Rajaraja and his Guru Karuvurdeva. So these are the original figures showing the two Nayanmars, Seraman Perumal and Sundaramurti. Sundaramurti is seated on white elephant, and Seraman Perumal is seated on the right side on white horse. And they are welcomed by the gang of, the musical troupe, dance and music are there on the upper portion. These are the other, we have already shown the marriage and other things. So they are not very clear. That's why the drawing was shown first. Next. So on the north wall, these are all the damsels. On the north wall, there is another painting which depicts the story of Tripurandaka again. Not only in sculptures, even in paintings also, Rajaraja showed the mighty king, God, who blessed the Rajaraja in all his wars. So see the smile of the Lord, even though he was very ferocious, very angry against the formidable enemies, the demon devotees. the demon devotees and 3 demon devotees and their um, wives were also standing with severing hands by the side of it. And Shiva just shows his smile. That means he has some sympathy towards those people. So this is a very beautiful painting shown in the Tanjavur temple. And there is a Chandigeswara shrine. Not that, I'll tell after that. So there is a Chandigeswara shrine by the side of north wall of the temple, east to the water chute. The water chute is a place through which the ablution water comes out. So by the side of the water chute, that is east of the water chute, the Chandigeswara shrine was placed. Here, for the first time, a pattern was set to place Chandigeswara shrine to the east of water chute. And later on, the same pattern was followed by the subsequent rulers up to the 18th century onwards. So Chandigeswara is the first devotee of Shiva, and I don't want to go to the story because time is precious for us. So even though he was the first devotee, and in the whole of Saivism, you cannot see any other information about any other devotee other than Chandigesa, who was addressed by Shiva himself as son. Shiva called only one devotee as his son, that is Chandigeswara, so that Chandigeswara was later on made as the manager of the Shiva temples. Now, there are other temples also. The Amman temple, Virganai Amman temple, which is located to the north of the Nandi pavilion, to the north of the Nandi pavilion, facing south. Virganayagi temple, that Virganayagi, it was constructed by a Pandya ruler in the 13th century who had the royal title Konerinmai Gondan. That is, there was no king equal to him. Konerinmai Gondan means there was no king equal to him. So it was constructed, and there was another, by the side of the Amman shrine, there is a Nataraja shrine also. And the last structure which was erected within the same temple complex is the Subramania temple, constructed during the Nayaka period, perhaps the Tanjavur Nayaks, the Raghunatha Nayakas period. And since it is located within the temple complex, some of the features, architectural features of this temple mostly resemble the architectural features of the Cholas as well as the Pallavas. So there are a good number of Devakostas or niches also, and there is a Upapida to raise the height of the temple. And one thing is very clear, that this is a temple which is complete in all respects. It's a complete structure. If one wants to do research on the temples constructed during the Nayak period, one has to first make a thorough study of this temple. Then only you can get a good idea about the construction of the temples during the Nayak period. So this is also a very good structure, and there are many things to go. Okay. See, there is an art gallery, government art gallery, that is museum, which was established in the year 1951 in there is a palace in another part of the city, and in a building there are so many structures, buildings in the palace itself, and in one of the gallery there was a gallery, government gallery, art gallery was created in the year 1951. There are beautiful, it's a repository of stone as well as metal sculptures belonging to 8th to 18th century CE. And there are some stone sculptures as well as bronze sculptures also. Among the stone sculptures, we have selected two very beautiful sculptures. These two stone sculptures are from Dharasura, nearby temple constructed by Rajaraja the second, the great grandson of Rajaraja the great first. So this is a beautiful image. It's a stone image. You can see the black stone, and this is Gajasamhara. Shiva slaying the elephant-headed demon. See how ferocious is the Lord when piercing the body of the elephant-headed demon. It is this fearful activity is so not only in his body, not only in his movement. See, by the side of the Lord, there is a female figure, that is Parvati. Out of fear, Parvati is about to move from that place. See that? And there is a small child, Muruga, on her lap. So, on her hip, there is a child, and the child is about to jump from the hip out of fear. So, these two, the image of Parvati and the image of child Muruga, they show the fearful activity of Lord here. It's most important. Very beautiful sculptural representation. Next one is, this is Bhikshadana Murti or Kankala Murti. So because when he holds a stick on his shoulder, he is called Kankala Murti also. So this is also from Dharasura, life-size sculptures, and then you can see Bhikshadana, Shiva as Bhikshadana, and the 7 ladies, the wives of the 7 rishis of Daruka forest. Shiva seduced, not physically, but seduced the minds of the Rishi Patnis, and thereby taught a lesson to the rishis of Daruka forest, who later on accepted the superiority of Shiva. That is the sculpture. Next. And some of the beautiful metal sculptures. See this particular Bhikshadana metal sculpture belongs to the period of Rajaraja, say about 1010 CE. It was made in 1010 CE. You can see the Lord is holding a bowl, and he is also feeding the antelope, and he is also having a musical instrument, kettle drum, and there are so many. Such a beautiful sculpture, even though it is made of metal, it resembles mostly the stone sculptures. It's most important thing you can now observe. It's very beautiful, very solid image also. Next one. We all know that during the Chola period, many Nataraja images were also made, stone as well as metal images. So Nataraja image is very beautiful, and Thiruvalangadu Nataraja and other Nataraja images. Of the Nataraja images, very beautiful image is Ananda Tandava. It speaks about the philosophy, that is the Pancha Kridiyas, 5 creations, 5 activities of the Lord, that is creation, sustenance, destruction, conciliation, and grace. So these are the 5 acts of Lord Shiva. And there is a book also written by Ananda Kumaraswamy, Dance of Shiva. And there is also another book written by C. Sivaramamurthy, Nataraja in Art, Thought, and Literature. So this is a beautiful metal image done during the at the beginning of the 11th century CE. Next one. This is Kalyana Sundara image. from Tiruveli or Tiruvelvikudi. Tiruvengadu also. So this is from Tiruvengadu. And see, in the later Kalyana Sundara images done by the Vijayanagar Nayak rulers, Shiva is holding the right hand of, here also Shiva is holding the right hand of Parvati. And in other sculptures, you can see Vishnu pours water on their hand. That is called Kanniga Dana. He is just presenting his sister to Shiva. Here, Shiva, Vishnu is just standing and he is about to pour the water, but there is no water pot in his hand. This is symbolically shown. And Lakshmi is also standing by the side of Parvati. So it's a ideal marriage scene and a family scene also. Next. There is no equal in beauty to this particular sculptural representation, that is this bronze image, Shiva. And people used to say that even stones will speak. Not only stones, even metals also speak. It all depends upon the human mind who makes such sculptures. So here, Shiva is Rishabha Vagana, Rishabhandiga, I think. See, Rishabhandiga Murti. Just he is sliding on Rishabha, but there is no Rishabha. And he is also just touching the head of Rishabha, but there is no Rishabha. His vehicle is not shown, but it is symbolical. The very posture itself shows that there is Nandi, that is Rishabha is there. So that is the Rishabhandiga. And see the head decoration. His head is locked, and you can see this. There is a serpent coil, and you cannot find any difference between his dress, hair dress, and the serpent coil. In such a way, the head of the serpent alone is shown above it. So the other parts of the coils are not visible because it is mixed with the headdress of Shiva. And Parvati is also shown here holding a flower in her hand. Next. So in the palace was constructed by the Nayaks of Tanjore and later on modified by the Marathas of Tanjore. The Marathas at the fag end of the 17th century, the Marathas, they invaded Tanjavur under the leadership of Ekoji, the half-brother of the great Maratha ruler Shivaji. So they invaded and they occupied Tanjavur, and they maintained their power, their rule at Tanjavur up to 1855 till the British occupied it. So they modified this palace. They've also done some valuable works in the temple as well as in other areas. This is one of the portions of the palace in which the Saraswati Mahal library is functioning. The Saraswati Mahal library consists of materials collected by the Maratha rulers, particularly Sarfoji II. So it has in its collections Sanskrit, Tamil, Marathi, and other Indian language scripts, particularly the palm leaf manuscripts, paper scripts, and others. There are about 49,000 volumes of such scripts in this Saraswati Mahal library, but only a meager amount of the scripts alone are in display. With permission, one can go and refer to the manuscripts found in the library. Now they have digitized everything, and you can see in the computer itself what are the records or manuscripts available in that library. Next. This is the palace. This is the palace in which the art gallery as well as the Saraswati Mahal library are located. This is the entrance to the palace. It is modified during the Maratha period. Next. There are interiors. There are so many halls in the interiors. Many architectural elements, both Indo-Saracenic architectural elements, the arches, are all employed to construct this particular palace. So this is the interior. There are so many office, government offices are also working in that. And next one. Same thing in another view. Next. And there is an art gallery within the Tanjavur palace. If you go in the night during when there is light, electric light, all these paintings, they look so beautiful. There are many cinemas, films taken in this location. It's a very good location for taking films. There are so many stucco sculptures depicting Ramayana stories also in this art gallery. Each part of the art gallery looks so beautiful with these paintings. Next. See, such a very beautiful structure. Different colors have been used for making paint. And myself and my friend Dr. Vedachalam also went there, and we were there for 3 or 4 days, and we have taken a film for our EMRC, Educational Multimedia Research Center at Madurai Kamaraj University. For that center, we have taken some films also, and it was recorded by the department of EMRC also. And next one. So this is another area of the palace, and there is another that is the roof. This is the roof. See, the roof is also very well decorated. This is a very beautiful roof structure. You can see the paintings also. It looks like a stone structure, but it's a brick structure only. Next. The last, but not the least one, is Tanjavur paintings. Tanjavur paintings means not Raja period paintings. It is Maratha. They have introduced the painting, the new system of painting. It's very famous also, and it's very costly also. Even now, there are some artists who are doing this one, and mostly Krishna and his Leelas are painted, and they used colors, vegetable colors were used, and these paintings are studded with precious stones and glass, mostly glass and precious. So this is Krishna as a child. Next one. This is Krishna when grown up as a small boy. See the beautiful decoration of Krishna's body with all ornaments and other things. This is Mother Goddess. See the very beautiful structure, the painting of Mother Goddess studded with precious stones and other things. And in addition to that, there are also other temples like Rajagopala Swami temple constructed during Nayak period, and there was a palace constructed by Raja. Now that palace is not at all available there. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks.